Friends, we have a problem. The United States is just not growing its own food. Now, I know you've probably looked at the sea of grain and corn and all sorts of commodities out there, but the simple fact is when we talk about fruits and vegetables and, food, we're not growing nearly as much as we used to. Every farmer out there seems to be switching over to making ethanol out of corn and growing wheat and growing soy. Stuff that is not going to make a salad, let's just say it that way. We're importing more and more fresh produce from other countries and less being produced here in the United States. And that is making us fundamentally less healthy. We're switching to processed, ultra manufactured food. We're going to talk about some of these numbers and serious things. We're going to take a little deep dive, not a deep dive, a brief dive into ethanol and the subsidies that we're paying. It's mind-bogglingly industrialized, let's just put it that way. We're not growing food like Europe does. We're not investing in our health. It is a health crisis, and it needs to change. We need to take back the idea of growing our own food as an honorable thing that we should, if we need to subsidize something, we need to subsidize that, not the growing of industrialized food that most of it is being exported or turned into fuel. Friends, we don't need ethanol. We have gasoline. We have diesel. We have our own fuel coming out of the ground. Why don't we use that? Because you're going to see how devastating it is that we're paying ridiculous amounts of money to put ethanol in our gas when we make just enough gas here in the United States. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And let's just say, as I was doing a bit of a deep dive into the numbers here, the problem is so bad. It's so bad. And the mainstream media is not covering this. Most folks out there aren't. We're saying farmers, but as I was kind of talking about yesterday, there's different kinds of farmers. Okay, there's farmers, and then there's farmers, right? Now some farmers, they grow wheat and corn and soy. This isn't necessarily an attack on them or anything like that, okay? But it's part of a system that's moving us towards industrialized food. So farmers got to make a living. Everyone's got to make a living. But when we look at an industry as a whole, the workers may not be the problem, but the industry and the government regulation is the problem. Because we're incentivizing certain things and we're decentivizing other things. All right, so, I said farmers and then farmers in quotes. And what I mean by farmers in quotes is corporations and also like major institutions or people that own farmland, but they don't actually farm. Okay, they're not farmers, they're farmers. And yet these farmers get so many incentives and subsidies from the federal government, even though they're not actually growing anything. Or in the sense of a corporation, they're not a person, right? A corporation is not a person. I mean, legally they're a person, but I think we all can understand that a corporation is people in suits, run by people in suits, and not by people growing food. They employ farmers, but anyway. Right now, would it surprise you if I told you that 60% of all the fruit, fresh fruit in the United States on the store shelves comes from other countries? Probably wouldn't surprise you. You've been picking up oranges and seeing South Africa, and you've been picking up oranges and seeing Mexico or Peru or Ecuador. 38% of the vegetables, fresh vegetables here in the United States on the store shelves are from other countries. Now, we don't have nearly as much control over how they use pesticides and chemicals they use and practices that they do when they're from other countries, do we? We don't. And as biomedical GMO stuff goes further and further, I mean, there's not a lot of crops that really have GMO yet, but we're moving into a situation where we're starting to see introductions of GMO, all sorts of things. I know that's a big problem. So what do we do about this? Well, I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, we've been moving from quality to commodity. And this isn't a new trend. This is a continuing trend. But we're hitting the final off-ramps, okay? You know, like when you're about to go on a toll road and they're like, you know, last off-ramp before you get on the toll road. The last option to stop before you start incurring consequences. And we're already suffering those consequences, right? I mean, you go into a grocery store and you see like a little fruit section, you see a little produce section, and then you see aisle after aisle after aisle after aisle after aisle after aisle of super processed boxed foods. That was one of the things that, as I was going through Spain, I really noticed is just like they had a big produce section. They had like a big fresh bread bakery section. And then they had like a relatively small, like processed bread, you know, like sandwich bread, you know, it comes in the loaves and everything like that. It's all pre-sliced. It's not even really bread. It's almost kind of more like cake, right? Sandwich breads. But they had like a small one of those in a big bakery. And then it was kind of not noticeable because you're like, most of these stores were relatively small themselves. The grocery stores were relatively small because they were mostly fresh food. And then they had a couple aisles of processed stuff. So they had a little chip aisle or whatever, chip section. And then they had like a little, and even in like the processed food boxed stuff, there's a surprising amount of stuff that was very healthy and very unprocessed. You know, like bags of oatmeal with, you know, with some nuts or raisins or whatever in there. And you're like, that's not really processed. And then you look at other things on the shelf, and usually you didn't see that much that was super processed. And even the stuff that was typically kind of processed, you could tell it was higher quality and better. Is it more expensive there? Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I would say it was more expensive for general things. But overall, in Spain and other European countries, as I was going in there, you can just tell that in the supermarkets, they're focused more on quality and less on commodities, right? Commodities are something where it's just like, you have X. How many of X do you have? Okay. And we can trade that back and forth. It doesn't matter what brand you got. It doesn't matter whatever. You know, it just is what it is. Soy. How many tons of soy do you have? How many tons of corn do you have? At what percentage moisture? And what, you know, it's just a commodity. It's like oil, okay? I mean, nobody's like, well, I like this dude's brand of oil. I mean, now there's different chemical makeups of the oil, depending on, you know, sweet and sour and, you know, heavy density and, you know, there's a gravity point and stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, there's the chemical makeup of it, but nobody cares where it really came from as long as it has the right chemical makeup, right? That's a commodity. Now, when we start talking about fruits and vegetables, it doesn't matter how many tons of bell peppers you have. You and I are going to go over to the bell peppers and we're going to pick them up, see if they're squishy. Okay, it's nice and firm. That's good. Is it big? Oh, we like big ones, don't we? And you're like, does it look good, or does it look all kind of weird and warped, and does it have spots in it, you know, does it have like bad spots in it, you know, that we're gonna have to cut out? It's not a commodity. I don't care how many tons of bell peppers you have. I want to know, do you have good bell peppers or bad bell peppers, right? You see how quality is so important, especially when it comes to fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. I mean, you've had a good apple before and you've had bad apples, right? It's the whole saying, right? Bad apples. Same thing with potatoes. Potatoes used to be a commodity here in the United States. I mean, as long as you kind of had the right kind of potato, but now it's like you got to check for eyes and spots. The quality of the stuff coming in from abroad, partially because it's coming from so far away, is a lot lower than if we grow it locally. And we've been talking about this, and friends, we really need to be switching over to local. Now, if you're struggling to make your budget meet, right? If you're struggling to just buy food and put food on the table and put some food away, well, then you need to be shopping at Walmart and Aldi. That's just, if there's some discount stores near you, then yeah, that's where you need to be shopping. And I know some people are going to be on here like, oh, well, you gotta buy the fancy whole food. You need to be making your own bread. You need to be doing all this stuff. For those who are working and struggling to just make by, there should be no shame attached to them. And that's one thing I get a little frustrated with this community, the prepping community at large, and sometimes on this channel. People go after people. They don't understand the situation. I just saw the other day someone posted something about how they were looking for some chicken fingers or chicken nuggets on the way home from work. And a couple of people just lit them up. And it's just like, you don't know this person's situation. You don't know how many hours a week they're working. And so, yeah, they went out to go get some fast food and they couldn't find that kind of fast food. And they had to settle for something that was less healthy even than that. And that's the reality of the situation. If you are doing a little bit better and you can make the investment, I mean, switching more local, healthier options, more ingredient-based options, and that's a challenge because, like, I'm a single person. I live home alone. And you know what? It's just easier to get those frozen burritos, throw them on the microwave plate, microwave them, hit some cheese on top of them, and then throw some Taco Bell sauce on it. Guilty pleasure here, right? And is that healthy? No, it's really not. That's a lot of processed stuff. And but is it easy? It's really easy. It's really easy. And when I just need a quick meal, boom, that happens sometimes. And throwing the pizza in the oven happens. Anyway, I said we'd be talking about ethanol here too. But if we can switch to more local, national, and have relationships with the companies that we interact with, we've talked about it before. And there's a subscription thing that I belong to myself personally. And if this isn't for you, if you need to do the Walmart and Aldi and stuff like that and buy the cheapest of the cheap in order to just make things work, then by all means do that. If you have a little bit more money that you can invest in that, in higher quality products, less chemicals in your products, it's important to kind of switch over. If you hit the link on the pinned comment down below, the Switch campaign is about taking, instead of buying these corporate chemicals and some food as well, and switching over to cleaner products and American-made stuff. I found their products to be really, really good, and it's not that much more expensive, and a lot of times it's actually kind of comparable to what you'd find at Walmart and such in the organic section or the clean products. If you like to talk to someone about that, we've actually been staffing up a little bit here, getting some viewers from this channel trained up to walk you through the program and see if you'd like to get on that subscription too. I've been on this subscription for about a little over a year, and I've got some great products. I can't even think about switching back to the Dollar Tree versions of like the bars of soap and the cleaning products. They work great. Anyway, this isn't meant to be a sales pitch on that, but if you're interested in that, that'll be down in the pinned comment. We'll be talking about that more in the future with some dedicated videos. We're talking about ethanol here, though. Ethanol. This is a double dip, triple dip situation where the United States is subsidizing corn farmers. Okay, $660 million for farmers who grow corn. 45% of that corn gets turned into ethanol. Okay? So we're subsidizing the corn and the ethanol program. Well, that sounds good. Now, if you're a refinery that you turn corn into ethanol, guess what? You get subsidized. How much? about $1 per gallon. So for every gallon of ethanol you produce, you get paid $1 tax credit from the federal government. Oh, that's nice. Now, if you have a refinery or wherever they do this, and you take gasoline and you mix it with ethanol, guess what? You get 54 cents per gallon of basically of the ethanol that you mix in. It's 8 cents per gallon, but then at 15%, you round it around and you basically are getting 54 cents per gallon of ethanol that you use. So $660 million for the corn farmers, and about almost $300 million of that is going to corn farmers who are growing ethanol. Okay? And then we get to pay again $1 to the producers per gallon. And then we get to pay 54 cents to the mixers, the blenders. And then if you're like, well, that's us paying more. The addition, the mandates from the federal government to have a certain percentage of ethanol in the gasoline and to use a certain amount of ethanol overall adds another 20 to 30 cents price to our gallon of gas. So we're paying for the corn, we're paying for the producer, we're paying to the mixer, blender, and then we're also paying at the pump. That's a quadruple dip. How much does this end up being? You don't even want to know. It's ridiculous. The amount of money that we are paying in order to have ethanol into our system. And these are farmers who are skilled at their trades. They're doing a fantastic job growing corn out there and then turning it into an industrialized product. At the end of the day, our oil and gas folks are much better at extracting energy out of the ground than our farmers are. Our farmers are growing corn that's not being eaten. And that's a problem. When we talk about this, this is kind of what's happening, is that the farmers that used to grow produce are now growing commodities. Soy, corn, wheat, cotton, rice. A lot of these things are being used for corn feed, livestock feed and ethanol. And a lot of the other stuff is being shipped overseas. A lot of the wheat's going over to China. A lot of our rice is going over to other places too. We're incentivizing farmers to grow stuff that we're exporting to other places, not for us. What we really should be doing is incentivizing farmers who are growing food for Americans. If Americans aren't eating it, then there shouldn't be a farm subsidy on it. That's my opinion on it. And that might be an unpopular opinion because if you're like, Steve, why are you attacking farmers? I'm not attacking farmers. I'm attacking the bureaucratic system, the governmental system that is flawed and is incentivizing farmers to not grow food, but to grow industrialized goods. I think that's not good. And then what that turns into is that we then are incentivized to have industrialized, ultra-processed foods as opposed to healthier foods. If the price of produce, of salads and vegetables and fruits were to come down, and they looked better because they were from America, they had more nutrition because they were grown here, they have less chemicals because they're grown here, would you buy more fruits and vegetables? I don't know about you, but I look at the fruits and vegetables and I go, that's expensive. Gee, this processed stuff's super cheap. The government is driving the price of the processed foods down while it's jacking up the price of the fruits and vegetables, the healthy stuff. And our government should stop doing that. That's my opinion on it. All right, folks, if you want to find out more about the Switch campaign, switching your spending, your existing spending from unhealthy, chemical-laden stuff over to less healthy stuff, over towards healthier stuff with less chemicals and all that, and actually talking to someone from this channel about that, no pressure. They'll walk you through the prices. They'll show you all the program. You do have to hit a certain dollar amount per month, and then they ship the stuff to you. It's a subscription thing. It's sort of like Azure Standard, but not, and it's less focused on food. Azure Standard's fantastic, by the way. But if you want to find out more about Switch Campaign, just type your information in that link, and someone from this channel, not some company, someone from this channel will reach out to you. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up there. I'll also put that Switch link right there on the screen so it's easy. You can just tap right on it. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of The Poplar Report out.